There exists a profound exhaustion that settles deep within the soul when someone has spent countless days and sleepless nights trying to escape the truth of their own heart. Your person has reached that point of complete emotional depletion. They have wandered through a wilderness of their own making, desperately attempting to numb the persistent ache that echoes through every corner of their being. For so long, they have buried their most authentic emotions beneath layers of distraction and denial, convincing themselves that silence was somehow safer than vulnerability. But silence, as they are now discovering, can become its own form of torment. What once felt like protection has transformed into a prison of their own construction. The walls they built to keep pain out have instead trapped them within a suffocating space where their unexpressed feelings have grown into something almost unbearable. They have come to understand, with a clarity that cuts through all their previous self-deception, that no amount of running can outpace the truth that lives within their heart. Every attempt they have made to fill the void you left behind has only served to illuminate the unique shape of what they have lost. Like trying to complete a puzzle with pieces that will never quite fit, each distraction, each new face, each temporary connection has only reminded them more acutely of your irreplaceable presence in their life. They have learned the hard lesson that some bonds transcend the ordinary, that some connections touch places within us so deep that they become part of our very essence. You are not simply another person who passed through their life. You were a rare gift, a soul who touched theirs in ways that defied explanation and resisted replication. The connection you shared was woven from threads of understanding, acceptance, and a love so genuine that it frightened them with its intensity. Walking away from that sacred bond, regardless of whatever justifications they offered themselves at the time, was a mistake that now haunts their every waking moment and invades their dreams. In recent times, they have become acutely aware of a shift in your energy, a turning away that they can feel in the deepest recesses of their intuition. It is not merely the physical distance that separates you now, though that alone would be painful enough. What they sense is something far more profound, a withdrawal of your heart, your focus, your spiritual attention from the space you once shared together. And their instincts are absolutely correct in this perception. You gave everything you had to this connection. You poured yourself out like water in the desert, offering forgiveness with the generous heart of someone who believed in the power of love to transform and heal. Time and again, you chose hope over hurt, extending olive branches when others might have walked away in justified anger. With each new chance you offered, your heart harbored the tender belief that they would finally see the precious gift that lay before them and choose to protect and cherish it. But instead of stepping into accountability, instead of looking honestly at their own reflection and acknowledging their shortcomings, they consistently chose the easier path of deflection. It became a pattern as predictable as it was painful. Rather than face the uncomfortable truth of their own behavior, they would redirect the blame toward you, making you question your own perceptions and wonder if perhaps you were asking for too much. This cycle of disappointment was not born from a single dramatic moment or one devastating argument. Instead, it grew slowly, like sediment accumulating at the bottom of a once clear stream, gradually clouding the waters until you could no longer see through to the truth beneath. Each instance of deflection, each refusal to take responsibility, each moment when they chose their ego over growth, added another layer to the growing wall of disappointment that was building between you. The turning point came not with fanfare or dramatic revelation, but with the quiet, devastating clarity that sometimes arrives like dawn after a long, dark night. You saw with perfect, painful clarity that continuing to give your all to someone who was unwilling to meet you even halfway was slowly eroding your own spirit. The realization struck you that love without reciprocal effort is not love at all, but a form of self-sacrifice that ultimately serves no one. So you made the most difficult decision of your heart, pulling back not from a place of spite or revenge, but from the deep well of self-respect that still existed within you. You began the challenging work of turning your focus inward, choosing to nourish your own soul instead of constantly attempting to heal someone who refused to acknowledge they were wounded. This decision required tremendous courage, for it meant walking away from someone you loved deeply, someone whose potential you could see even when they could not see it themselves. Their inconsistent behavior had created a whirlwind of confusion within your heart. The emotional whiplash of being drawn close only to be pushed away again left you questioning everything you thought you knew about love, about yourself, about what you deserved. There were dark moments when you blamed yourself, wondering if you were somehow flawed, if you were asking for more than any reasonable person should expect. But eventually, the truth became undeniable and crystal clear. You were not asking for the moon and the stars. You were simply asking for the basic building blocks of any healthy relationship: honesty, genuine effort, and emotional consistency. When those fundamental elements were not forthcoming, when they remained elusive despite your patient waiting and hopeful believing, you had no choice but to step away for the sake of your own emotional survival and spiritual peace. This decision, while necessary, was not made lightly. It came after much soul-searching, many sleepless nights, and the gradual acceptance that sometimes loving someone means loving yourself enough to walk away. Your decision to prioritize your own healing and focus on rebuilding your inner world has left them swimming in an ocean of regret so deep they can barely keep their head above water. For the first time, perhaps in their entire life, they are beginning to see with stark clarity everything they failed to protect, everything they took for granted, everything they allowed to slip through their fingers while they were distracted by lesser things. In the harsh light of hindsight, they now understand how much you meant to them and how little they showed it when showing it mattered most. They are confronting the painful reality that they did not prioritize your connection when they had the precious opportunity to do so. Instead of investing their time, energy, and emotional resources into nurturing the beautiful garden of love you were both tending, they allowed outside voices and meaningless distractions to cloud their judgment and lead them astray. They listened to the opinions of people who did not understand your connection, who had not witnessed the quiet moments of tenderness between you, who could not see the potential that sparkled like gold just beneath the surface. They gave more weight to these external voices than to yours, the one voice that should have mattered above all others. In doing so, they created layers upon layers of misunderstanding and emotional distance that now feel almost insurmountable. The weight of their choices has become too heavy for them to carry with the casual indifference they once displayed. They miss everything about you with an intensity that takes their breath away. They miss the way you used to care for them with such genuine tenderness, the way you would show up wholeheartedly even when your own heart was breaking. They miss your physical presence, the sound of your voice cutting through their loneliness like a beam of light, and the unwavering support you offered even when they did nothing to deserve it. But what they miss most profoundly is the version of themselves that existed in your presence, the person they became when they were with you. In your company, they felt seen in ways they had never experienced before. They felt supported, understood, and loved with a completeness that made them feel whole. You saw not just who they were, but who they could become, and you loved both versions with equal fervor. But pride may prevent them from speaking these truths aloud. In the quiet chambers of their heart, they know beyond any shadow of doubt that they let you down. They know they had someone truly extraordinary, someone whose love was a gift many people searched their entire lives to find, and they failed to treasure that gift the way it deserved to be treasured. Meanwhile, in the space they left behind, you have been engaged in the sacred work of learning how to be whole again. You have redirected the river of your energy toward your own growth and healing, pouring into yourself the same love and careful attention you once gave so freely to them. This journey has not been easy, for walking away from love is never simple, especially when your heart was completely invested in the outcome. But with each step forward, with each day that passes, you are discovering new depths of clarity, new reserves of strength, and new levels of peace that you had forgotten existed within you. You are remembering who you are outside of the pain, beyond the confusion, separate from the disappointment. In this process of rediscovery, you are rising like a phoenix from the ashes of what was lost, transforming into a version of yourself that no longer settles for half-hearted love or emotional inconsistency. They see this transformation happening within you, and it affects them in ways they struggle to articulate. It hurts them, not because you are moving forward, but because they recognize that they pushed you to this point of necessary self-protection. They understand that the distance between you now is not the result of chance or circumstance, but of choices, their choices, decisions they made that created this chasm where once there was closeness. For the first time in their life, they are beginning to comprehend the true depth of what they lost when they failed to meet you in the place where you stood with open arms and an open heart. The magnitude of their loss is becoming clear to them in ways that leave them breathless with regret and desperate with longing. Even though miles may stretch between you like an endless desert, they carry within them the unshakable knowledge that your love continues to bloom inside their soul every single day. The physical distance that separates your bodies cannot weaken the emotional and spiritual connection that has taken root in the deepest parts of their being. No matter where they find themselves or what activities fill their days, your presence remains with them like a gentle whisper carried on the wind, a constant reminder that they are forever tied to you by invisible threads that distance cannot break. They want you to know, with every fiber of their being, that you should keep a sacred space for them in your heart, because the love they feel for you is honest, deep, and completely irreplaceable. They understand now that they could search every corner of the earth, meet 1,000 other souls, and still never find someone who makes them feel the way you do. What you shared together was rare and powerful, transcending mere romance or passion to touch something much deeper. Your connection was built on a foundation of comfort, loyalty, and the miraculous way your souls seemed to blend together so effortlessly, so naturally, as if they had been created from the same stardust and were always meant to find each other again. You are the kind of person who makes life feel meaningful, who brings color to gray days and hope to dark nights. The thought of losing you permanently is a pain they struggle to bear, a weight that sits heavy on their chest and makes it difficult to breathe. For them, there is nothing in this world worse than being separated from you. Even when they surround themselves with laughter, friends, and countless distractions, they cannot escape the persistent ache that your absence creates within them. It follows them everywhere, a shadow that reminds them of what they have lost, what they threw away, what they failed to appreciate when it was within their grasp. Their heart belongs to you completely and utterly. No amount of distance, no passage of time, no amount of pride or stubbornness can ever break the love they carry for you. You became the rhythm that their heart beats to, the gentle calm that soothes their chaotic thoughts, and the peace they never knew they needed until you showed them what it felt like to be truly at rest in another person's love. They feel deeply proud and profoundly honored to have crossed paths with someone as loyal, genuine, amazing, and elegant as you. Sometimes, in their quieter moments, they wonder what good they could have possibly done in their life to deserve someone as incredible as you, because you never failed to show your care, your commitment, and your unwavering support, even when they did not understand it or appreciate it fully. You were their shield during the tough times, protecting them from the harsh winds of life with your steady presence. You were their cheerleader in brighter moments, celebrating their victories as if they were your own. Today, looking back with the painful clarity that only distance can provide, they see just how truly special you are, just how rare and precious your love was. For far too long, they failed to recognize the truth about the beautiful connection you shared. They were blinded by their own fears, paralyzed by insecurities they could not name, and terrified of the changes that real love demands of us. You were the person they had been searching for their entire life, though they did not realize it at the time. You possessed a heart so pure it seemed to glow from within, intentions so kind they restored their faith in human goodness, and a spirit so strong it could weather any storm. But when you finally arrived in their life like an answered prayer, they were not prepared for everything that came with such an intense, all-consuming kind of love. They were frightened by the depth of their emotions and the overwhelming way you made them feel. They had never experienced anything like the connection you offered, and that unfamiliarity scared them more than they cared to admit. They did not know how to handle being loved so sincerely and completely. The purity of your affection confused them because they had grown accustomed to relationships built on conditions and limitations. Your unconditional love felt too good to be true, too intense to be sustainable. That confusion led them to act foolishly, to push away the very thing they needed most, the very person who could have helped them become the best version of themselves. They never imagined they were capable of falling so hard, so completely, so irrevocably for another human being. Your smile became the sunrise they waited for each day, the light that made everything else bearable. Your voice became the melody that could calm their internal storms, and your laughter became the sweetest music their heart had ever heard, a sound that could lift their spirits even in their darkest moments. Yet here they are now, learning the hardest lesson life has to offer, that appreciating someone after losing them is perhaps the most painful truth any human heart can be forced to live with. Your absence breaks them from the inside in ways that words can barely begin to explain. They thought they were strong, they believed they could handle anything life threw at them, but your distance has revealed just how weak they become without your warmth to sustain them. The quiet, lonely nights stretch endlessly before them, filled with memories of what you shared together and dreams of what you could have built side by side. These visions haunt them constantly, appearing in their waking hours and following them into sleep, where they are tormented by dreams of a love they let slip away. They realized you were their true love only after separation forced them to confront the reality of life without you. Ironically, it took distance to make them understand just how tightly their heart is bound to yours, how completely intertwined your souls had become despite their attempts to maintain independence. The space between you has become a teacher, showing them lessons about love they were too blind to see when you were close. Hurting you is the worst thing they have ever done, a mistake that will haunt them for the rest of their days. From the deepest depths of their heart, they regret every careless word, every thoughtless action, and every moment that caused you pain. If they could travel back in time, they would take it all back and replace every tear they caused with smiles, every moment of hurt with healing, every instance of neglect with devoted attention. They wish they had been wiser, more patient, and infinitely more grateful for everything you brought into their life. But as life teaches us through its harshest lessons, sometimes we only truly understand the value of what we have when it has been taken away from us. Now they know exactly what they have lost, and the knowledge is almost unbearable. They lost not just a lover, but their closest friend, their deepest confidant, and the one person who always believed in them more than they believed in themselves. You were not only their romantic partner, but also their best friend, their source of strength, their backbone, and the home they always longed to return to after facing the world. Each day that passes, they hope with desperate intensity that life will offer them a second chance to hold you again, to cherish you the way you always deserved to be cherished, and to prove beyond any doubt that their heart was always yours, even when they were too confused to show it properly. Until that day comes, if it ever does, they will carry you within them like a sacred flame, loving you across every mile that separates you, through every moment that passes, and with every heartbeat that keeps them alive in this world without you. Now, something profound is shifting in the cosmic dance between your souls. They are preparing to return to your life in a way you never expected, not out of mere convenience or casual desire, but driven by an urgent, desperate need to finally speak their truth before time runs out entirely. For so long, they remained silent while you were left wondering why their energy had shifted so dramatically, why the person who once seemed so present had suddenly become so distant and unavailable. They kept their distance like a frightened animal, sidestepped important conversations that needed to happen, and avoided dealing with what was right there in front of them, the undeniable connection that pulsed between your hearts like electricity. During that time, you may have felt ignored, abandoned, or even questioned whether they had ever cared at all. The silence was deafening, and their absence felt like a rejection of everything you had shared together. But the truth, which they are only now able to acknowledge, is that they were confused and completely overwhelmed by feelings they had never experienced before. Unable to process the intensity of their own emotions at the time, they chose the seemingly safer path of avoidance rather than face the magnificent and terrifying reality of what existed between you.